Have you ever looked at your life and thought, there has to be more than this? Not more stuff, not more goals, but more meaning, more coherence, more truth. If you've ever felt that nudge deep in your gut, that the world isn't quite what it seems, then you're already half awake. You've started to sense it. Life isn't random, it isn't chaos without cause. And it certainly isn't punishment. Life is a sacred game. Not in a light-hearted, frivolous way, but in deeply designed, beautifully complex way. A grand, multidimensional experience where everything is both mirror and message. And the purpose of the game? To remember who you are. To wake up from unconscious living and take back your creative power. To realize you're not here to just follow the script handed to you. You're here to write your own. As a conscious reality creator, you learn this over time, that your job isn't to win the game that others are playing, but to design the game that aligns with your soul. This is the shift from surviving to creating, from enduring to choosing, from being played by life to playing with life. But here's where it gets interesting and more challenging. Once you start to wake up, you begin to notice the hidden layer, the games within the game, the systems, roles, and beliefs that surround us, many of which we inherit. We don't actually choose them. Cultural narratives, social structures, media programming, family patterns, they act like invisible operating systems running in the background, dictating how we think, how we behave, and even how we dream. And for a while we may play along, until one day we realize these are not our games. They are not aligned with our true desires, our deepest truths, or our highest potential. And that's when the conscious creator begins the real work, the art of designing their own inner games.
That's right, and one of the most essential inner games that any conscious creator will ever create is this one, the game of staying neutral in chaos. Now, that word neutrality can be misunderstood, so let's clarify what it's not. Neutrality is not numbness, it's not apathy, it's not some passive detachment where you pretend not to care. True neutrality is inner steadiness. It's what happens when your sense of self is no longer defined by outer circumstances. You are the calm center in the eye of the storm. Think of a mountain. Storms come and go across its peaks. Winds howl, snows fall, the sun rises and sets, but the mountain remains unmoved. That's neutrality. Not denial, but depth. Not resistance, but rootedness. And inside this neutrality is an even more refined challenge, a micro game, if you will. The challenge of finding something good in every situation. Now, this is not about toxic positivity. This is not about slapping a happy face on when you are having devastating experiences. It's about becoming the kind of being who can look at darkness and say, there's still something there that I can work with. Who can stand in rubble and say, there's still a foundation under my feet. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't happen overnight. And it certainly doesn't happen because you memorized a spiritual quote or heard a podcast that said that everything happens for a reason. This kind of meaning-making comes through practice, through facing life head-on, through loss, through heartbreak, through injustice. And instead of being shattered, you start to get sculpted. Your pain becomes your teacher. Your sorrow becomes your song. Even the ugliest moments somehow, eventually, offer you a thread of gold. Now, it might happen right away. Sometimes the wisdom takes years to surface, however. But when it does, it doesn't just change how you see that moment. It changes who you are.
And this is where the shift becomes permanent. This is where the game becomes yours. Because once you realize You can choose how to perceive any moment. You reclaim your sovereignty. You reclaim your center. You become the author of your own story, not the victim of life's twists and plots. This doesn't mean you won't feel pain. You will. It doesn't mean that you will always be graceful. You won't. But what changes is your baseline. You develop what we call spiritual reflexes. Instead of spiraling when things go wrong, you pause. Instead of asking why me, you ask what now. Instead of giving away your power, you ground into it. You learn to sit with uncertainty without demanding immediate clarity. You learn to listen deeply instead of react quickly, and gradually something beautiful happens. The life becomes infused with purpose. Not because it's perfect, nothing ever is, but because you're participating in it consciously. Even your past begins to rearrange itself. You stop resenting it and start learning from it. You find moments that once brought shame or guilt, and they now bring you strength. You start to see that every detour led you back to yourself. And in doing so, you become a quiet revolution, a living reminder to others that there's a different way to live, a deeper way to play this sacred game.
Yes, and perhaps this is the greatest act of rebellion in our current world. To stay centered in chaos, to stay kind in a world that feels cruel, to keep creating when everything around you screams collapse. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Because the real victory isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about getting everything on your vision, or about getting everything on your vision board. It's about becoming someone who can stand in the middle of contradiction and still choose love, still choose meaning, and still choose to create. You become the mountain. You become the eye of the storm. You become an architect of your own inner kingdom. And when enough of us live that way, the outer world starts to shift too. Not from force, but from frequency. Because you've changed the only thing that ever needed changing, your state of consciousness. And from that state, life doesn't control you anymore. You don't just survive it, you sculpt it.
So if you're watching this and life feels like it's pulling you in 100 directions, if you're tired of playing games that don't reflect who you are, let this be your invitation to stop that, to breathe, to come back to your center, to start designing your own game again. You don't have to have it all figured out. None of us ever do. You just have to begin. You start by noticing what games you're playing. Ask yourself, are these my games, or were they handed to me? Then slowly, lovingly begin crafting new ones that support your joy, ones that reflect your truth, ones that help you stay rooted when the world wobbles. Because you were never here to just keep up. You were here to wake up. And not just for yourself, but for everyone watching, wondering if they can do it too.
And if you found resonance in this message, subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment. Share this with someone who's struggling. Not because we're here to give you all the answers, but because we're all playing this sacred game together. And sometimes all we need is a reminder. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're just waking up. And the game is just beginning. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.
I'm a quiet rebel. I don't need a shadow.